I was 27, and I knew with a frustrating certainty who I was. Or, at least, I thought I did. I lived in Seattle, working as a content manager for a small tech company, renting a bright apartment overlooking a perpetually rainy street, and drinking far too much coffee in the mornings. My life wasn't perfect, not by a long shot, but it was mine. Until that morning, anyway. It started with a message. "You were weird last night. If you need anything, just say the word." It was from Emily, my best friend. I reread the message 3 times before responding. "What are you talking about? We didn't see each other last night." Her reply came almost instantly. "Very funny, Claire. You stopped by my place in the evening. We talked for almost an hour." A strange tightness coiled in my stomach. I remembered being home that evening, alone. I'd been watching a bad TV show and fallen asleep on the couch with my laptop in my lap. I was absolutely certain of it. I called Emily. She answered on the second ring. "Claire, if this is a joke, it's a really bad one," she said, her voice laced with concern. "You were at my place, in your gray coat. You were even complaining about work." "Emily, I didn't leave the house," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "Are you sure it was me?" Silence. A long, unsettling silence. "Of course I'm sure. Don't you remember?" I sat on the edge of my bed for a long time afterward, staring at a single point. The logical part of my brain insisted it was just a simple misunderstanding. Emily had probably confused the days. But something darker, something far more unsettling, was rising from deep inside. I picked up my phone and froze. In the gallery, there was a photo, taken yesterday at 8:43 p.m. Me reflected in the window of a bar on the corner of Pine Street, wearing my gray coat. I didn't know how it got there. Throughout the week, the oddities began to accumulate, like water building before a flood. A colleague thanked me for a conversation that hadn't happened. The barista at the coffee shop inquired, "How was your meeting with your friend?" Then I received a confirmation email for a therapy appointment on a date I hadn't scheduled. I started documenting everything in a notebook. Time, place, people, my own sensations. Emily was there, too there. "Maybe you're just burning out," she said, sitting with me at my kitchen table, stirring her tea. "You've been working so hard lately. Stress can do strange things to memory." She looked at me with genuine concern. I believed her. Emily had been with me for 10 years. We'd navigated college together, the first failures, the first successes, the first broken hearts. If anyone else had told me something was wrong with me, I would have laughed. But Emily, she knew me better than anyone. "I'm afraid," I confessed one evening. "Sometimes it feels like someone is living my life." She took my hand. "I'll help you sort this out, I promise." And I believed her. But that very night, I woke to a notification on my phone. A new email from my own name. "I'm sorry this happened, but you have to understand I didn't have a choice." Sent to myself. I sat in the darkness, feeling a frantic throb in my throat. A question rose, chilling me to the core. A question that truly terrified me. What if the problem isn't that I'm forgetting? What if someone knows exactly who I was and is terrified of who I'm becoming? I never really liked thinking about New York. Seattle had become my refuge for a reason. 5 years ago, I'd packed up and driven across the country, telling myself it was just about a new job and a chance to start over. But the truth was deeper. I was running. Emily knew that. We were sitting in her car, parked overlooking Elliott Bay. The sky was a bruised gray, blending seamlessly with the water, and it felt like the whole world was reduced to shades of doubt. "You never really told us what happened back then," she said softly. "Maybe it's connected to what's going on now," I sighed. Back in New York, we'd had this shared dream, a media startup. I was the face of the project, she the creative force. We'd built it together, scribbling out concepts late into the night, convinced we were on the cusp of something huge. Then the investor wanted a single leader. Me. "I didn't want that," I said, staring out at the windshield. "They offered me the contract. I thought it would be good for both of us." Emily was silent. "But you took it," she said, her voice low. And I was left behind. A familiar pang of guilt shot through me, sharp and insistent, like a shard of glass against my skin. I tried to bring you with me, I countered. They wouldn't let me. And then everything just crumbled. The project died within 6 months. She nodded, but there was something in her gaze that I hadn't noticed before. Not anger, exactly. Something colder, more profound. Sometimes, she said, one decision is enough to break someone's life. That night, I couldn't get to sleep for a long time. It was the first time in years I'd allowed myself to truly consider. What if I'd actually chosen myself back then? Emily had become a part of every single day of my life. She'd helped me install cameras in the apartment, just in case. She'd suggested changing passwords, accompanied me to meetings. She'd even insisted I see a therapist. It doesn't mean something's wrong with you, she'd been persuading me. It's just a way to anchor reality. The cameras showed nothing. An empty apartment, an emptiness, but the traces remained. One day, I returned home to find a lipstick stain on the table, a shade I hadn't worn in months. The next, an open laptop displaying a draft of a resignation letter, written in my handwriting with my words. Emily read it all with me. Someone is copying you, she said. Or you are, but different. Do you think I'm losing my mind? I asked directly. She looked at me, a long, unsettling gaze. I think you've been carrying too much strength for too long, she replied. And sometimes the mind simply cracks. I began to doubt myself. I caught myself thinking that without Emily, I wouldn't have made it through. It was only later, lying in the dark, that I noticed a strange detail. One day, while reviewing the camera footage, I saw Emily confidently entering the code to my front door. You gave me that, she said when I questioned her. In case of an emergency. I didn't remember it, but I was so weary of doubting myself, I simply nodded. Only later, curled in the darkness, did it suddenly dawn on me. If someone truly lived my life, they had to be close enough to memorize it. And that thought was far more terrifying than any other. The realization didn't arrive suddenly. It crept in slowly, like a gas leak, odorless but fatally dangerous. I was sitting in a cafe near the office, scrolling through an old cloud archive. The idea to check it arose purely by chance. Emily had mentioned our New York project, using a phrase we'd never spoken aloud, only in the scribbled notes. I opened the folder from 5 years past. Login logs. Access to my account was regular. For the last 3 months, from an IP address in Seattle. I froze. Emily had been helping me with security. She'd insisted I restore access to old services to preserve the memory. She knew the answers to the security questions. She knew the dates. She knew my vulnerabilities. I checked the timestamps of the strange emails, messages, doctor's notes. They all aligned with the moments when Emily dropped by for a quick visit. A physical wave washed over me. That very evening, I didn't drive home immediately. I sat in the car facing my house, watching the windows glow with light. I checked the time, 21:12. There was no movement, no shadow, no silhouette. Just a steady, tranquil light, as if the most ordinary life were unfolding within its glow. As if my life continued without me. My phone vibrated. Emily, where are you? I've come over to your place. You're not answering. My fingers went numb. If she's sending this now, it means she's either already inside or right beside me. I didn't reply. Instead, I activated the camera on my phone and zoomed in. The curtains were slightly parted. I saw the outline of a bookshelf. A sofa. Familiar shapes that suddenly seemed alien. The thought struck me with a brutal, unpleasant force. What if I'm wrong? What if all of this truly me is a fabrication? Gaps in memory, stress, a fragmentation. What if I'm here and someone else is living my life? The thought sent a genuine shiver of terror through me. I recalled the therapist's words, the one Emily had insisted I see. Sometimes the mind protects us, creating alternative versions of reality. I could simply leave. Spend the night with friends. Pretend nothing was happening. But if I leave, who then would live my life? I'd been sitting in the car for almost 40 minutes just staring at the rain. Then, a couple of texts from Emily, 2 more. The last one, it carried a sharp edge of irritation. "Claire, you're scaring me. If this is another breakdown, we need to talk." Breakdown. The word snagged in my mind like a tiny, insistent hook. It wasn't a dramatic word, but it felt loaded with something heavy. I got out of the car and started walking towards the house, but each step felt like a monumental effort. It was as if, the moment I opened the door, I risked losing something vital, the last flicker of my own certainty. The entrance hall was silent, swallowed by the stillness of the evening. The elevator moved with a glacial slowness, each ascent an eternity. I caught my reflection in the mirrored wall pale, the eyes strained and tight. I looked like I was being summoned, not welcomed home. The hallway on my floor was empty. It felt wrong, unsettling. When I reached my door, I noticed something odd. The lock wasn't fully engaged. I hadn't done that since I knew someone else was coming. My heart hammered against my ribs. I fumbled for my phone, switching on the recorder, just in case. Then I activated the camera. My hand shook as I reached for the handle. I held my breath. If what was behind that door was true, and a cold knot of dread told me it probably was, then I'd have to accept it. If it was a lie, then I'd have to be ready to prove I still existed, that I hadn't simply vanished. I opened the door, and the silence on the other side felt heavier than before. I was sitting in the living room, Emily in my sweater, my laptop on my lap. "You're early," she said, her voice remarkably calm. "I was just about to explain things to you." The world narrowed to a single point. You lived my life," I whispered, the words feeling strange and almost unbelievable on my tongue. She smiled, a tired, gentle smile, not one of anger. "No, Claire," she said. "I was reclaiming it." We sat facing each other as we had in the old days, but now a truth lay between us, heavy and undeniable. Emily talked for a long time, her voice steady, almost relieved. After New York, she'd simply broken. Lost her job, her confidence, herself. And I'd gone away, started over. It must have looked like a betrayal, a cheerful dismissal of everything we'd shared. "You took everything," she said, her voice low, "without even noticing, and I was left a hollow space. People listened to me, looked at me, but I was always the other." It began subtly, reading my posts, mimicking my writing style, then chance encounters with my friends, trying on my life like a borrowed coat. "I wanted you to feel what I felt," she confessed. The doubt, the dissolution, the terror of being unnecessary. "You could have just talked to me," I said, my voice trembling. "I would have helped." She shook her head slowly. "No, you wouldn't have, and I needed justice." I'd already called the police. A recording was running, the cameras were on. As they led her away, she looked at me one last time. "Now you know what it's like to lose yourself." 6 months passed. I moved, changed jobs, reclaimed my name officially and within myself. I didn't fear looking in the mirror anymore. Sometimes I think of Emily, the fragile line between friendship and envy, between pain and choice. I've learned a hard lesson. Justice isn't about revenge. It's about returning truth to its rightful place. And now, my life is truly, finally mine again.